Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I am your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this simple question: do Americans really want to solve problems? As more things are coming out about what happened in Uvalde, Texas at Robb Elementary School, it's looking like there was a rumor initially that there was like an officer or something at the school. That wasn't the case. I've read heartbreaking stories of parents who were yelling at the police to do something, go in, and just a lot of things aren't adding up. I saw, I think it was Jack Posebek who said, we're not hearing the full story because they're trying to figure out what they want to tell us. But it does, in my opinion, look like there was incompetence as far as what happened actually on that, as when the active shooter started. There was even a mother who drove 40 minutes, I believe it was either 40 minutes, 40 miles, maybe it's 40 miles to get to her child when she heard there was an active shooter, and actually went in the building and saved her kids, but not before like being, detained by the police officers. And just lots of things are just really unfathomable right now. But the Republicans are like, hey, does it, like people like Ted Cruz, like we need solutions for our schools to be safe. We need to make their schools more secure. And people on the left are mocking Republicans like they don't understand locked doors. Like it's too much of an inconvenience to have someone who's security there armed in a situation like this. Do we really not believe that armed security would have maybe deterred, or at least they could have ended that person? Maybe they couldn't have, and the person would have, this 18-year-old who had a newly gun. I don't know what their background was prior to buying the AR-15s and whatnot, but what makes you think if there was like a retired veteran there that the same thing would have happened? Now we can't know for sure, but there understand what people don't understand about doors and security. And people don't want our schools to have to be more secure like that, because they're like, we should be able to just roam around, and that'd be nice, but what are your other options to disarm the population of Americans, where it's written in our Constitution that we have the right to bear arms, after you spent years demonizing police, saying they're racist and implicitly biased, we can't trust them, blah, blah, blah. And Obama was like, we got to remember that George Floyd was killed. I know you're mourning these little babies, but FYI, George Floyd was killed by police 2 years ago too. So I don't think authority figures are the only ones should have guns. And Don Lemon went to a big rant. I think this is during the Kyle Rittenhouse case, about how all these people, they think that they're supposed to protect their towns and protect their streets and protect their property. He's like, if I have a issue, police are supposed to solve. Police are supposed to do this. Do you know police do not have like a constitutional duty to protect you? Police do not have a constitutional duty to protect you. Your right to self-preservation is your right. So don't let them disarm you. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Disney Plus. They did this last year to some degree, but they released a video. They were really promoting drag queens on Disney Plus. So just think about that when you're deciding to pay for Doctor Strange and Thor and all this other stuff. I also saw this really crazy abortion video just before I went live. I'm like, I gotta share this because this is really indicative of the demonic sort of rot in our society. And I just gotta show it to you. But before we jump into all of that, I do want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles that I have. I dropped an article last night, as I said I would, about the debate with Michael Knowles and Victoria Hammett, who's has nearly 800,000 followers on TikTok. And she's the deputy director of Gen Z for Change, and she supports abortion. She's making the argument for bodily autonomy, which I really break down her arguments and just prove why they were really silly. I also I also talked yesterday on the show about this really dumb analogy that she had, and I cut that and I made that a full video. So you guys can watch that. You guys can share that. Make sure you go to the website and check out different content that I have there. You guys can also check out different merch that I have, like the "You Better Be Better Not Bitter" shirt. Also got the "I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For," and the "My Money, My Business" shirt, which I made because I was sick of people telling me that abortion is nobody's business. I mean, what do you mean? Our taxpayer dollars are involved in that. They're first of all, they're trying to appeal the Hyde Amendment. So people are like, well, we have the Hyde Amendment. They don't want it anymore. They want to get rid of it. Okay. So they want you to pay for your abortions federally. They want to use federal fundings for that. But they do still send money to clinics, and they buy fresh, never frozen fetal remains and experiments for humanized mice experiments. So your taxpayer dollars are involved. Really quickly though, I was thinking, and I did a TikTok about this, but maybe I'll do a sort of a more complete sort of video. But I was thinking about Hobby Lobby because someone was like, just minding your business is free. And I'm like, is it really though? Is minding your business free? Because Hobby Lobby was minding their own business, and the Affordable Health Care Act happened, where they wanted to make businesses pay for certain contraceptives. And this is a private company, but it's like a religious company. I mean, not the owners are religious, and they ended up winning their case at the Supreme Court. So Little Sisters of the Poor went to the Supreme Court twice because they didn't want to supply contraceptives that violated their faith. And the Biden administration, the Biden campaign promised that they were going to try to repeal those exceptions. Biden, he chose the Secretary for Health and Human Services was someone who sued the Little Sisters of the Poor. Now, Democrats will say, he didn't sue nuns. Okay, well, he sued the Trump administration, who was protecting the nuns. So people who say minding your own business is free, you should just mind your own business. I don't think that politicians who are pro-choice, I don't think the abortion lobby or these activists really want people to mind their business. They want you to not judge them and not obstruct them, but they want everyone to participate. They just want you to not oppose them. So the mind your business, it's none of your business thing, that's an illusion. It's an illusion. So just remember those things that I just told you. Also, I want to thank Brighter Michigan Pack. I'm in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. They just like to uplift and conservative voices, and I'm always happy to be in the studio. Also, if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Everything that you do really does support. So I appreciate you guys. So, and make sure that you guys are sharing and liking and hitting the notification bells and all that kind of stuff. I don't know why they can't just send stuff in the feed when you like something. Like you have to, they make it all extra difficult because it's just all suppression, I suppose. But we do what we can to bypass it. Okay, so before I jump into everything, I do like to start off with a meme. I'm gonna start with this Disney stuff first. Someone posted this. Mainstream media, stop sexualizing women. And then there's Chris Hemsworth as Thor, and then he's naked. FYI, this is from the trailer for the new Thor movie, which I do not plan to see. I've not seen a Disney film in a minute, but in that, I did watch the trailer out of curiosity, but in the trailer, he's like, I don't know, Zeus or somebody. He's in a disguise. He's like, I'm gonna, blow off your disguise or something, and then he did something, and then all his clothes blew off, and the Thor was like, hey, he's like, you blew too hard, and then all the women started fainting, and so people have complained about sexism in comic books and how they draw women and sexualizing people like Black Widow and other stuff, or Like they thought she's way too sexy in Iron Man 2, which was not a good movie. And I think out of the trilogies, Iron Mans are the worst, even though like Iron Man 1, I really, really liked. I actually went to the movies twice to see it. I just thought they did such a good job. And but Iron Man 2 and 3 are trash. But anyway, they're like, oh, she's too sexualized and how they portray women is bad and stuff. But Thor can be like naked and stuff. And I don't think I don't know if Chris Hemsworth and all these guys who get the rock solid abs and stuff entirely mind that much. But I do think it's interesting that how people will complain about the portrayal of women and sexualization of women as if women do not sexualize men. There's this one comic book cover that has Nightwing on it and his multiple costumes, but the one in his like I think most current form, he's just looking from like the backside, and his butt was just so prominent, and people just were like commenting about his butt, and that just became like a major, I don't know, like I don't say like a major meme, but it was like a major phenomenon. Nightwing's butt. So please don't tell me that people don't sexualize men. People are really unfair about their distribution of what they really care as far as sexualizing society. But since we're on the topic of Disney, I know there's people excited to see Thor, the newest Thor film. They got to do this to you. Disney Plus, last year they had this during Pride Month. They had a This Is Me segment, I suppose. But here's a clip that Disney has put out. Now, when I first I started questioning, I'm like, is this the thing from last year? But no, it can't be because they have some new content in it. So let's go watch.
Hello, and welcome to the Disney Plus This Is Me Pride Celebration Spectacular. I'm Nina West, and I'm here to guide you through a magical, musical, and meaningful celebration of the LGBTQ plus community. GLSEN's mission is to create safe and inclusive schools for LGBTQ plus students in grades K through 12. And Disney Plus is so proud to support this wonderful organization.
So just FYI, they said Disney Plus is very proud to support this organization that's focused on like LGBT for K through 12. K through 12. Kindergarten through 12. Just wanted to point that out.
For more information, visit www.glisten.org/pride. Now, I'd like to shine a spotlight on a fellow queen who knows a thing or two about creating an epic Disney Plus inspired look that set the internet ablaze this last year. Esteemed guests and friends, I give you my friend, Jackie Cox.
Oh, you didn't think you were the only magical girl in town, did you? The name's Agatha Harkness. What's yours?
Messing up everything.
It's been Agatha all along.
Who's been pulling every evil string?
It's been Agatha all along.
Yeah, so this is your Disney Plus content that they have in support. Like they said, K through 12. So that would be like 5 to 18. I'm really kind of sick of talking about drag queens. I'm sick of seeing stuff like this. Like, this dude isn't obviously not my type, but I bet I'm not his speed either. But look how kind of normal he looks. Not a bad looking sort of dude. And then look at this monstrosity. I don't understand. I don't understand. And most of the singing is like garbage too. So I don't understand the phenomenon. I really resent whoever decided to make drag queens a thing. RuPaul once said that drag isn't, even though they have their big show and stuff like that, that drag isn't supposed to be mainstream because it mocks everything, gender, culture, etc. So not sure why Disney is and other organizations are trying so hard to push this. There was a school Libs for TikTok maybe posted it, that there was a school and they invited drag queens like to give a performance, and I saw the videos, and then the school was like, oh, this wasn't authorized, this was like a club or something that did that. What is up with people and just this perversion? I don't understand why anyone would think this is appropriate or okay in the least bit. And I did say that I thought that was the one maybe from preparing for this year, because we are approaching Pride Month. But I guess that could have been necessarily a clip from last year. I thought WandaVision was earlier than this past year. I mean, but it came out January of last year, so it is possible. That could be from last year's spectacular or whatever, and maybe this is just kind of late getting out. Not sure, but I'm sure they're going to do another one and have a lot of stuff for Pride Month. So just be aware of kind of stuff that you choose to support. FYI, when you're going to go see Thor and all that other kind of stuff, because Marvel is their golden sort of calf right now, and they're not on trend right now, I believe, to meet the sort of subscriber numbers that they thought they'd be able to get. And like there was an article about, depending on Star Wars, what they're doing with Star Wars, and Marvel may not be able to get them to where they want to be with their numbers, especially I think if the content they're relying on is Miss Marvel and the Agatha show they're going to come up with in Echo. Not sure if that's going to work out for them. Not sure in the least bit, but I'd rather they just shape up and start flying right with Disney, but I don't know if they're going to anytime soon. But I didn't expect Netflix to fire a bunch of activists, so who knows? Well, let's move on to grimmer topics. Not that wasn't grim, but what happened out in Texas. So I was out to dinner with my family, and I was explaining that there's so many Democrats who believe right now that if you advocate for doors being locked in like a single point of entry, that is just too much or really stupid. And my mom, and it was her birthday yesterday, that's why we were out to dinner. She's just like, but people do it now. Schools in Pontiac have done that. It doesn't make any sense. Like inner city schools and stuff have had, like, you can't just open the doors everywhere. It was so bizarre that people are acting like that's such a crazy idea. And as a matter of fact, here's a NBC News corresponding person mocking, someone else was mocking Ted Cruz, talking about how we need to have security. And they said, yep, they'll do, the issue is doors, not guns, doors. And the issue isn't really guns, it's people who use guns. If you have a gun and you're not a crazy person and you're responsible with your gun, you can have it locked up and it'll never hurt anyone, kill anybody, kill anything in its life. So no, people who are criminals who want to use guns to commit crimes and don't care about a majority of the gun laws that they want to put in place that are in place. Like it didn't deter the shooter that it was a gun-free zone. As a matter of fact, the Buffalo shooter wrote in his manifesto that these zones where people aren't supposed to have guns is a place where you can go in and hurt these people. So a lot of people on the left are trying to mention a lot of gun reform or legislation, common sense gun laws, as they call it, that won't actually curb gun violence. And by the way, if leftists knew how to end gun violence, why haven't they done that in Chicago? Why haven't they done that in Washington, D.C.? Why haven't they done this in all these areas where they have control with the mayors and the governors? Well, not necessarily, I guess the governors may not mean as much, but in New York, they do always have like, liberal governors. How come they haven't solved the problem yet? And they'll blame other states where people can go and get guns. Like they'll say Chicago's problem is in people going to Indiana and getting guns. Well, how come the people in Indiana aren't having the same kind of issues that people are having in Chicago? It's not all adding up. Maybe it's how you govern. Maybe it's how you govern. Maybe it's how you go after criminals. Maybe it's how you punish criminals and whether you keep them in jail or not. Maybe that has like some stuff to do with it. Just maybe. And there's an article in Newsweek that I'm going to read that addressed some of the stuff that Biden was saying that just debunked some of his claims about gun control. But they're really pretending like the issue is guns so much that you have to start making laws that are going to infringe upon law-abiding citizens, like or some people flat out do want to disarm the population. Why do people think that's more practical and doable, especially since we have a Second Amendment? Why do people think that's a more practical solution than actually having security at schools, having a security out in the front, and you can have multiple exits, but you can't have multiple entryways? Why is that so strange? It's not, but the more people push back against it, and especially since there's schools like this already, people are like, how would that even work? It's impossible. Like, how is it impossible? There's schools that are already like this. So why is that so impossible? It makes me suspicious that there's people who just really, really, really don't want to solve the problem. They really just want to confiscate guns. And so they tweeted out, they want to lock down our children, fortify the schools, stand off perimeters, limited egress, more armed guards, blanket surveillance. No other children in the world outside of war zones have to live like that. They'd rather rob our children of childhood than act. Would you rather these children be unsafe so they can't have a childhood? That's bonkers. That's bonkers. What? I don't understand. So is it more practical to just get rid of guns? I really question these folks. Now, you can't always just depend. We do expect police to do their jobs. That's what they signed up for. Now, before like Sandy Hook and Parkland and other stuff like that, they show up on the scene and maybe they would wait for SWAT to come in, etc. But they realize that in a situation with an active shooter, you may not have that sort of time. So protocols changed and police are supposed to go in and deal with the gunman. But in this case, you had from the time people were reporting there was an active shooter, he shot at his grandmother, then apparently went and shot at like a funeral home. And from the time people were reporting about an active shooter, he was not killed until 90 minutes later. And for 40 minutes, at least 40 minutes, you had parents yelling at the police, pleading with them to go in and do something. There were parents who wanted to go in and do something, and the police restrained them. There was a report that they pepper sprayed someone. There was a woman who drove. She heard what was happening. She drove to get her kids or see her kids, and the police weren't doing anything. They handcuffed her for like obstructing or something, impeding their operation or whatever. She convinced them to unhandcuff her, and she went inside, got her kids herself, and then ran out. So one of these parents that were arguing with the police, they lost a child. So this isn't good enough. And people keep saying, I keep hearing people say, oh, we need to make sure they're sued. I hope they're sued. I hope they're sued. I hope they're sued. I don't know. I'm not a legal expert, but I do know that cops do not have a constitutional duty to act. So I don't know. Maybe you could have some kind of civil suit. But I don't know. The Supreme Court has upheld that a few times, that they don't have to act. There's no duty to act. So when people talk about just depend on police, and police are the only ones who should have guns, or you can, I do like police. I want police to show up speedily when I call, and I want them to act when I need them. And I'm a pro-police person. However, your self-preservation is in your hands. So people who are pretending like we can just live in a world where only some authority figures have guns, that's ludicrous. And by the way, our population that is heavily armed, and if you add all these measures on guns, where like you have to have gun insurance or a registry where people have to keep paying like a yearly fee or something like that, do you think that's really going to stop a shooter who bought his guns just to go out and kill people for a single day, knowing that they may not live through it? I don't think so. What you're going to do is just make it harder for people to have guns, especially people of lower income who may live in a community where the police are not going to get there in a speedily amount of time. And you may just create an environment where good people give up their guns, but the criminals are still heavily armed. And as long as you have soft, good, squishy DAs and whoever who won't really prosecute these people to the fullest extent of the law, they're going to keep committing crime and being out on the streets, harassing people everywhere. I was thinking, there was this Comic-Con I go to all the time in Chicago. And I was thinking about, me and my sister were talking about it. We went to Motor City not too long ago, and we're going to probably go back again in August, and that's local and whatnot. But we were thinking about going back to Chicago because we did really enjoy that show. And we were talking about going to the New York one for the first time. I've been to a book con in New York at the Javits Center, but I haven't been to not their Motor City, but their big Comic-Con. And so I was just thinking about it today. I'm like, and I thought about it before with the Chicago and the crime. I'm just like, man, the crime is like outrageous right now. Like, would that be safe to go? And when I went to New York some years ago, I'm not saying the crime probably wasn't bad then, but I'm just like, I would do all this walking out, around that area in Hell's Kitchen. And actually was like staying in Jersey, and we take the subway, and then we would, because it was much cheaper than the hotels, I guess, but maybe not worth the time that I spent just getting there. But we were so tight on cash at the time, just out there trying to fulfill our dreams. And we'd take the subway, and then we would walk, to the Javits Center and stuff. And you just hear about how bad crime is and how many attacks there are, and how there aren't any sort of real repercussions for these people. And I'm like, is that even safe? I don't know. I said this before today, but I'm just going to repeat. If Democrats knew how to solve gun crime, then why do we have such gun crime in Chicago, in New York, in Washington, D.C.? Why? In areas where we have such strict gun laws. Doesn't make much sense to me. I'm going to read this. Well, I guess before I read the article in Newsweek, let me just play a few interviews from the police talking about what happened. So this is a question asking why didn't they go in?
Wolf, is that there was multiple officers that arrived on scene. There was 3 officers that arrived that made entry at one of the entrances where the gunman actually made entrance to. We had another 4 officers that made entry at the other entrance of the school. So there was officers inside that school. As they were taking gunfire, they were also calling in for reinforcement, backup, tactical teams, snipers, any additional personnel that could arrive to assist to not only with the situation, but also to assist in evacuating students and teachers. At that time, That's when a U.S. Border Patrol tactical officer arrived, also with a Zavala County Sheriff's deputy, as well as 2 additional Uvalde Police Department officers were able to go into that classroom with a ballistic shield as cover. And of course, we know that one of those officers, an agent, actually was shot, was grazed at the top of the head, but they were able to shoot and kill the suspect and preserve any other life. We know that there was other injured children inside that classroom that they were able to save as well and get them to cover. And at that point, it became a recovery process, a rescue operation, trying to rescue the injured and also any other potential children or teachers that were inside those classrooms.
But don't current best practices, Lieutenant, call for officers to disable a shooter as quickly as possible, regardless of how many officers are actually on site?
Correct. The active shooter situation, you want to stop the killing, you want to preserve life, but also one thing that, of course, the American people need to understand is that officers are making entry into this building. They do not know where the gunman is. They are hearing gunshots. They are receiving gunshots. At that point, if they proceeded any further, not knowing where this suspect was at, they could have been shot. They could have been killed. And at that point, that gunman would have the opportunity to kill other people inside that school. So they were able to contain that gunman inside that classroom so that he was not able to go to any other portions of the school to commit any other killings.
Your colleague at the Department of Public Safety, Lieutenant, said the majority of the gunfire was actually done at the beginning.
So, some people are really upset about him saying, like, basically, you know, if they would have engaged in this kind of way, they could have been shot and then they wouldn't be able to save more lives. But they did go in, and then there were gunfire, and then they like had left out. And I just can't imagine being a parent yelling at the police for 40 minutes to go in and do something, especially there were kids inside the school calling 911, asking for help, begging for help. And I just can't imagine these parents being in that situation, and especially knowing that their children are gone. Like, and that they were fighting with the parents. Like, I understand you don't want somebody to mess up something, but they weren't acting at the time. And one parent actually went in and got her kids. And the Border Patrol agent, like, didn't wait for order, didn't wait for backup. They went to the scene, they went in and they killed the shooter. So there's a lot that these police officers are going to have to answer for, and a lot's not making sense. And it really does seem like they were, I don't know, they're untrained, unprepared. If it was a matter of cowardice, not sure. The story is kind of all over the place, but it doesn't look good for them. But again, people were reporting before that there was like an officer on the scene and that they were killed. There wasn't like a resource officer, somebody, or an armed guard or something prior to the gunman getting there. So just FYI, I do think that and apparently they reported that there was a back door that was open. So that, if you're wondering how they got in there, apparently there was a prop back door in the back, and they got in that way. Here's a question about the barricaded door that didn't make any sense.
We just need you to stay at the microphones because otherwise the camera's gone. Thank you for doing this, and I do hope you stay here and take as many questions as possible. You say there were 19 officers gathered in the hallway or somewhere. What efforts were made to try and break through that door? You say it was locked. What efforts were the officers making to try and break through either that door or another door to get inside that classroom?
None at that time. The on-scene commander at the time believed that it had transitioned from an active shooter to a barricaded subject.
You have people who are alive, children who are calling 911 saying, please send the police. They are alive in that classroom. There are lives that are at risk.
Hey,
that's not protocol, is it?
We're well aware of that.
Right, yeah. But why was this decision made not to go in and rescue these children?
Again, you know, the on-scene commander considered it a barricaded subject and that there was time and there were no more children at risk. Obviously, based upon the information we have, there were children in that classroom that were at risk, and it was, in fact, still an active shooter situation and not a barricaded subject.
Sir, if I can follow up. Sir.
Yeah, so this is not going to go for them. And by the way, the White House was asked if they were going to call for an investigation, and they kind of sidestepped the question, the new press secretary, and was like, oh, well, the president respects the police, and just, I'm like, okay, we all, I don't know how much he respects the police, but a lot of people respect the police. But it seems odd to me that this is the same administration that had an investigation on Border Patrol over a picture of a Border Patrol agents like chasing down an immigrant, and they had horse reins that were not whips, and they knew they weren't whips, and the media was reporting it like, oh, they're whipping migrants. And the White House decided to pretend like it could have been whips. And then were like, well, we got to investigate these people. And it wasn't until like, I don't know, a few months, maybe a month or two ago, that they announced like, oh, by the way, this person, they're clear. It's like, well, we all knew that they weren't whipping migrants. You have to do a big report. So keep in mind when they're like, oh, we just respect police officers. Okay, but did Biden respect police officers? In the Jacob Blake situation, because I'm pretty sure that kind of jumped to the gun and blamed them a bit, like tried to make it seem like it was a racial issue. When January 6th happened, they're like, oh, this wouldn't have happened if these weren't Trump supporters or something, like alleging like the police would have been on the scene and like tampered it. And it's like, you think, what are you trying to, like, what do you mean? First of all, the police, they went in and the federal government, whoever was investigating and getting these people right away and locked these people up very fast. Oh, I got the hiccups. And so it's not even like the equivalent of these people who went out there rioting and protesting, who were let go or never caught, and etc. But are you saying that these people who would arrest them just treated the protesters differently because they're racist? There was all kinds of crazy stuff that the Biden administration pushes. But you can't just say, yeah, we're monitoring the situation and we think a thorough investigation is needed. Because to me, it just kind of seems like you can't shift that way, because they so desperately want it to be about the guns. As a matter of fact, there was this question the other day at the White House about the gun manufacturer.
Two things. First, apparently the company that sold the shooter his rifles received a $3 million PPP loan under the last administration. Do you know if there's any effort by this administration to claw that money back?
So this is the first I'm hearing about this, so I would have to go back to the team and look into it. Do you know the name of the company?
The company is Daniel Defense, D-A-N-I-E-L Defense. Apparently they received a $3.1 million PPP loan right at the beginning. My colleagues have been writing about it apparently today, but if assuming that is confirmed, would the president, do you think, support the idea of trying to claw that money back?
I honestly, Michael, I need to check with the team and just make sure that is actually factual, but I need to check with the team.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Why would you need to check with the team to see if they're going to revoke a PPP loan for not doing anything illegal, mind you, just selling guns? So I thought that planted question was I'm not saying the White House planted it, but I thought that question was interesting. I thought that answer was interesting. But there's also this that came out of the Washington Post, where the owners of Daniel Defense, the manufacturer of the rifle apparently used in the Uvalde, Texas massacre, are deep-pocketed Republican donors. The owners have donated more than $70,000 directly to the GOP candidates for federal office this election cycle. So riddle me this, Batman. Is it really strange that people who make guns donate money to people who support the right to bear arms, as opposed to donating money to people who want to attack the right to bear arms? Is that strange? I think not. I'd think not. But they're going after the manufacturer of these guns, even though they didn't commit the crime, even though there's people who've obviously purchased many of their firearms who have not committed any crime. They want to go after the manufacturer because it's not about solutions. It's about the guns. It's about disarming the population. It's about making it harder for people to make the guns, making it harder for people to buy the guns, not necessarily the mentally ill to buy guns or people who are likely to commit these crimes, because there are red flags that people like to miss. Buffalo shooter, certainly red flags. There were red flags with this individual too. But he passed a background check. There's some stuff in his history that, if genuinely reported, maybe it wouldn't have passed a background check. But he did pass a background check. So this is that's Obama's old tweet. Before I go into this article debunking some of the stuff that Biden said in his speech, I also wanted to show this tweet from Eric Rep Swalwell. Keep praying, we're working. That just really seems like you're mocking thoughts and prayers, which I wrote an article about that the other day if you guys want to check it out. But I love this Twitter account that just deals with debunking fake news and stuff. They said, what work are you doing? There's a group of bipartisan lawmakers currently meeting to discuss a potential policy compromise that could actually pass. You're not among them because instead you spend your time bleep posting on Twitter and fundraising post-tragedies. Yep. He's a scumbag. He's a scumbag. I talked the other day about Beto. This is another thing we discussed at dinner because my family didn't understand why Beto would interrupt a press conference and look like a fool. And if you haven't seen it, I do have that video, so I'll play it real quick.
This is totally predictable. Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please do stop this. Sir, get exit. Get out. Get exit. Get out. Please. There's a tragedy happened here. We need to leave. This is not the place to do that.
So they're like, why would he do that? Isn't that like going to end his campaign? And I hope that ends his campaign. But Beto has always, frankly, his rhetoric in 2020 when he's like, heck yeah, we're going to take your guns. And he said all kinds of other crazy stuff. I mean, on The View, he talked about how they talked like the possibility of 9-month abortions. And he's like, just trust the woman. I'm like, oh, okay, so you're okay with 9-month abortions. Okay, so he always takes these super radical positions because he believes that those radical people who are rabid enough are going to be the ones who are energized enough to support him. And I don't know if he really has true intentions to win in Texas, because I would think if he doesn't have enough sense to know what he did bombarding a press conference dealing with these tragic losses was a bad idea, I'd have to think that someone close in the know-how would know that it's a bad idea politically. That was like a huge political gamble. Someone had to know. So my opinion is that he's not gunning to necessarily win. He's just gunning to milk stupid Democrats for every dollar they're worth, every single penny that they're willing to give. Because Beto raised a lot of money in his last run. And that's what he's focused on. That's what he's focused on when he did a super short stint for president. And I believe that's what he was focused on when he ran for governor. Maybe he wanted to really win, but he really phoned it in when he ran for president, said some really radical things because he was trying to, plant his flag and stake. And maybe he knew that obviously he just lost in Texas. So if he couldn't lose if he lost in Texas and if he had won in Texas, people might be like, oh yeah, if he can win in Texas, then yeah, that's the Democrat we need to have running for president. But he didn't. He lost. So it didn't make sense to think that he'd be able to just be promoted to, yeah, you're going to be the guy who's going to be president. So a lot of people will run in races like that to get notoriety for the next time when they decide to do it, but to raise money. I'm not saying he doesn't want to be president, but I'm saying he probably wasn't delusional enough to think that he would have won. But he got exposure and he got cash. And he's going to continue getting cash, not just from people in Texas who are super crazy, but people all over the country. So a stunt like that, there are people who are like, you're doing the Lord's work, and they will go ahead and donate to Beto. Doesn't mean he's going to win. I'm pretty sure he's not going to win. I'd be very shocked if he won, especially after that's done. But he wants cash from gullible fools. That I think that's a pretty solid opinion with Beto and why he'd do something that crazy. But does he want solutions? I don't think so. I don't really think these people are interested in solutions. And by the way, I think after something like this happens, there's so many emotions. I think something does need to be done, but something should have been done, in my opinion, before. But I think cooler heads need to prevail in situations like this. That's why I try not to come all like guns ablazing when something like this happens, and just not have all the facts and be really, really pressed with emotional responses and not thinking logically through these things. I don't want like hyper emotional people writing bad legislation. I want bills to be good, and I want them to actually solve problems. I don't want bills that are just going to virtue signal. Like, people are really mad at Republicans because they were upset about the lack of formula. And so Democrats passed a bill and Republicans didn't support it. And they're like, how dare these Republicans not support this bill to get more formula? But when the Democrats bill was like, hey, let's give some more money to the FDA, that's going to go and it's going to go towards expenditures and salaries. So the FDA, who arguably has failed doing their job as far as like getting the formula out there or making it so we can't get it from other places and so on, we're like, let's give them more cash because those guys are doing a bang up job. And it doesn't solve any problems. Now, Republicans actually had a bill that addressed some of the problems and shortages as far as baby formula. So why is he outraged that the Democrats didn't support a bill that can actually work versus they didn't help the Democrats pass a bill that isn't going to do much of anything other than paying their friends more cash? I want good bills that work. I don't want virtue signaling bills for voting purposes. But here's an article from Newsweek debunking some of the stuff that Biden said is when he addressed the nation as far as gun control and the sort of things that work and don't work. Another horrible tragedy occurred on Tuesday with the attack on the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, with 19 elementary school students slain. President Joe Biden was right when he said Tuesday night that Americans have had enough. Unfortunately, his proposals won't solve the problem. Just as with so many of these attackers, the man who attacked Robb Elementary School picked a place where people were banned from carrying concealed handguns. For example, the perpetrator of the Buffalo shooting from a couple of weeks ago wrote in his manifesto, areas where carrying with a concealed weapon are outlawed or prohibited may be good areas of attack. Teachers and staff can carry concealed handguns in about 30% of Texas school districts, so we don't need to guess how the policy would work. 19 other states also allow concealed carry in schools. Since the year 2000, there has yet to be a singular case of someone being wounded or killed from a shooting, let alone a mass public shooting between 6 a.m. and midnight at a school that lets teachers carry guns. People fear teachers irresponsibly using guns or students obtaining a teacher's gun, but none of that has happened. There has been only one accidental discharge by a teacher in recent years, and that was outside of school hours, which I do find that interesting because I have pushed back on this idea because I am concerned about something happening, but I think that is a good point, that it is already happening and nothing has happened as of yet. Again, I do think if something did happen, that political blowback would be astronomical. But if people have been actually doing it for a while, I suppose makes me feel better. While there have not been any problems with armed teachers, the number of people killed at schools without concealed carry has increased significantly over the course of the last decade. Biden's speech Tuesday night contained one misleading or false statement after another. Instead of trying to bring the country together, it politicized the attack. While mentioning Sandy Hook, Parkland, Santa Fe, and Oxford school shootings, Biden claimed that there were 900 instances of gunfire at schools over the last 10 years, with some committing suicide in a car parking lot at 2 a.m., two gangs fighting over a drug turf in parking lot after school hours, and an accidental discharge in a firearms training class are not remotely similar to the sort of shooting that happened on Tuesday, even including lone suicides, accidental discharges, including those by police, and gang fights. The number, as compiled by my organization, the Crime Prevention Research Center, is about half of what Biden claims it is, 470. Since 1998, there have been a total of 9 attacks similar to the Robb Elementary School shooting. 9 is 9 too many, but once you adjust for population, there are many other countries from Germany to Russia to Finland that have comparable rates of school shootings. Biden says that we need common sense gun laws, but what he proposes simply will not help. He doesn't seem to realize that over 92% of violent crime in America has nothing to do with guns. Focusing on so-called assault weapons is not only not going to stop mass public shootings, but it won't make a difference in reducing murders at large. Only a small share of murders are committed with rifles, let alone assault rifles, and that share has grown even smaller over time. The percentage of firearm murders committed with rifles was 4.8% prior to the federal assault weapons ban that took effect in September 1994. When the ban was in effect from 1995 to 2004, the figure stood at just 4.9%, and since 2004, it's been even lower. Based on these numbers, it's hard to argue that the ban did anything at all. Nor do most mass public shootings involve assault weapons. 55% involve handguns, and only 11% solely involve rifles of any variety. When we passed the assault weapons ban, mass shootings went down. When the law expired, mass shootings tripled, Biden claimed. In fact, there was no drop in the number of attacks with assault weapons, and virtually no change in today's mass shootings during the 1994 to 2004 ban. Biden asked Americans why people need assault weapons to hunt deer. But yeah, he always keeps quoting this stupid line about deers wearing Kevlar vests. It's really stupid, and it super wasn't appropriate for him to mention it on Tuesday when he moved from, oh, this is such a terrible thing, these parents are grieving, to the NRA is evil. But in reality, many so-called assault weapons are nothing more than a small game hunting rifles. The AR-15 platform has just been made to cosmetically resemble a military-grade weapon. And the goal of semi-automatic guns, of course, is not merely to help hunters. Semi-automatic weapons, which automatically reload the subsequent round into the firing chamber after a single discharge, also protect people and save lives. Single shot rifles that require manual reloading after each shot may not do someone a whole lot of good, especially if he is facing multiple criminals. That person's first shot may very well miss and otherwise fall and stop the attacker. Otherwise fail to stop the attacker. The Uvalde tragedy will inevitably lead to a push for so-called red flag laws or extreme risk protection orders. You would never know this from the media coverage, but the federal government in every state already have laws on the books that deal with people who are a danger to themselves or to others. These laws are commonly known as Baker Act statuses, though they go by different names in different states. They typically allow police, doctors, and family members to have someone held for a mental health examination based upon simple reasonableness tests, effectively amounting to an educated guess. These laws focus on mental illness, and they require that mental health care experts evaluate individuals. If a person can't afford a lawyer, a public defender is provided. While judges can choose to involuntarily commit individuals who they believe are dangerous to themselves or to others, there is a broad range of other less extreme options that involve monitoring, or mandatory mental care. But 17 states have nonetheless now adopted red flag laws. 13 states have adopted them since 2018 after the infamous Parkland, Florida high school shooting. While red flag laws are discussed as mental health measures and are often promoted to prevent suicide, only one state's red flag laws even explicitly mentions mental illness. And none of the states specifically require that mental health expert be involved in evaluating the person. The only option given to judges is to take away a person's guns. When faced with legal bills that can easily amount to $10,000 for a hearing, few people find that it makes sense to fight red flag laws just to keep their guns. Judges will thus initially confiscate a person's guns on the basis of written complaint and reasonable suspicion. When hearings take place weeks later, courts overturn a third of the initial orders. But since a few defendants have legal representation, the actual error rate is undoubtedly much higher. When people pose a clear danger to themselves or to others, they should be confined to a mental health facility. If someone is really suicidal, simply taking away his gun won't solve the problem anyway. If anything, red flag laws harm people who need genuine help. Absent such laws, a person contemplating suicide might speak to a friend or family member and be dissuaded from the tragic course of action. With these laws in place, though, individuals may fear that confiding in someone will result in a report to the authorities, possibly leading to the loss of their ability to defend themselves or their loved ones. Indeed, my own research with Professor Carl Moody at William and Mary actually finds that these laws slightly increase suicide rates. It is well past time we address these mass public shootings, but let's come up with proposals that matter, starting with eliminating gun-free zones. So I thought that was a good rebuttal to a lot of stuff that these folks are saying. But Biden's going to keep lying about the effects of stuff that he tried to pass and so on, because they really, 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 really want to go after the guns. Now, the Buffalo shooter, he had actually said something like he wanted to do a school shooting, and he was like evaluated, and nothing like popped up, I guess, when at all to stop this kid. So if you can't have a state, in a state like New York, where they have, strict gun laws compared to like other places, and someone with red flags and nothing stopping it prior, and then they plan out to shoot people at gun-free zones, and you don't think that we should make places safer? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me, guys. And again, I respect police. I want police to show up when I call. I want them to be there speedily, and I have trust in police. However, they also do not have a duty to act to protect you, not constitutionally. Your self-preservation is in your hands. So I know I said I was kind of leery about the idea because everyone's like, just arm the teachers, arm the teachers. And I'd be more concerned if there was an issue or a problem or something arose where someone stole a gun or a teacher went AWOL or something like that. But they have a right to defend themselves, to protect themselves, I think. No, I think that, they do. They do. So there's that. And then a lot of these people who are pretending like it's so crazy to have security in schools probably send their kids to the private schools where there is some good security, that someone whose arm might not go ahead and try to kill them because it's going to be hard to get to them. They'd rather go to a public school that has far less security. So if you're not going to work on making the public school more secure, especially, and don't tell me you don't have money for it. You send $40 billion to Ukraine. There's hundreds of millions of dollars in COVID money that was never spent. And there's way too much money that they even like passed the bill for anyway on stuff and giving money back to Americans that didn't even necessarily need it. But, some people bought shoes, some people paid their bills, whatever. We use the money irresponsibly and not where it really matters and can really count to protecting kids. So if you're not going to do that and you don't plan to protect the public schools, give the school vouchers so parents can send their kids to a place that does do that for kids. they could at least do that, but they don't want to do that. They want to disarm the population. Last thing I want to talk about is this video. I'm not going to talk long about it, but I just want to show you. I came across this abortion video, and it's pretty gross. And I just wanted to also show a bit of the moral rot in our society. And I thought this was a good example.
I could have killed you.
Oops, sorry.
But I chose to let you live. I could have killed you. But I chose to let you live. I chose to let her live. As in, I had a choice. All women should have a choice.
Do you realize what you just said? Killed. I cannot wrap my brain around this, no matter how I look at it.
If you don't want to use the word kill, that's fine. If you want to use the word kill, that's fine. When you use hand sanitizer, you kill germs. I could have simply chosen to let you not exist. But I let you exist. I let you form past the zygote phase.
Is that better?
So yes, I realize what I just said, and I stand by it. If you want to get an abortion, get an abortion. If you don't want to get an abortion, don't get an abortion, but don't try to oppress my rights.
To look at your baby and to say that's just crazy. And there's just such a lack of value for each other's humanity to stroke her baby and say, you could have not existed. First of all, you can't control. Once you're pregnant, you really can't control your baby not existing. You either kill her or you don't. The not existing thing was you not getting pregnant, but you did get pregnant. So the option after that was just to kill it. And I'm glad that you chose to let it live. But it's too bad the kid has a weirdo for a mom. And I hope that she grows up. She looks like she's an adult, a young adult, and she has a baby. So I look at that precious little baby to say that stuff to the baby. It's crazy. We have a sickness today. People don't value life, and then at the same time they endow themselves with some godlike power where they think that it's okay for them to be able to take lives because. And she says, respect my rights. She doesn't have a right to kill somebody. It doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. So, man, people like that, we can just have a ban on abortion and they can be mad when it happens. And these are kind of people, I'm sad for her. I'm disgusted, but I'm sad for her. But I also will laugh at their leftist tears because they deserve some humble pie or something. Sort of evil is just baffling. But a lot of these people still don't really realize the extent of what they're saying. Some people actually get paid to make stuff like that, FYI. Some people want clicks and they're not really thinking this stuff through. Hopefully these people will learn and grow, but man, there's a lot of deranged people in our society. Anyway, I'm sorry to leave you with such a bummer as we go into our weekend. Anyway, thank you for watching the show today. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content that I have on the website. I have plenty of videos about abortion and stuff you guys can check out and have good resources so you're able to debate properly, or at least have discussions with folks, intelligent discussions with folks, and maybe they won't change their minds. A lot of people don't want to change their minds, but there's good information out there to help you at least know that they don't have a good argument and they can just stay mad, but you can win the debate at least. Check out different merchandise I have on the website, like I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For. I got the I Voted for President Trump, and all I got was the story Peace Deals, Border Security, ISIS Destroyed, etc. Gas under $2, and a lousy t-shirt. So you guys can get that at blacktnews.com. Which, did you guys, I read part of an article the other day that the demand gas is so high that there's a lower demand for it. So people don't have the money to fill their tanks. So we're got these high prices, but the demand is low. And well, I think Walmart also reported that people aren't going in and buying full gallons of milk. They're buying half gallons because that's what they can afford. And I haven't filled my tank in a minute. It's expensive. Yeah, it's expensive for a lot of people. There's people approaching the $100 mark and over the $100 mark. So it's just really, really crazy out there. And man, people chose wrongly. And they're like, well, it has nothing to do with gas prices. You guys are so silly when you say that. Absolutely untrue. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blackteennews.com. Make sure that you guys are liking, that you're sharing, that you're subscribing. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, in the description, there's all kinds of different links to where I will stream. So I thank you guys for watching today, and I will see you guys on Monday. God bless.